Spider-Man fans, we are here once again. This week, Sony will release another Spider-Man spin-off movie, this time following the character of Cassandra Webb, played by Dakota Johnson, also known as Madam Webb. She's a paramedic in New York City in the early 2000s and begins to have visions of the future. These visions will eventually lead her to a trio of girls who will one day become Spider People. Unfortunately, they will also become great enemies with a man known as Ezekiel, who is also having visions of the future and his ultimate demise to these girls, putting him on a path to try and stop them from ever getting their powers. And well, that's all for news. I got any spoilers to you guys. This will be a spoiler-free review. I don't know why I'm surprised. I should have known better. So look, unless you're new to the channel, you should know, giant Spider-Man fan. That's been my favorite superhero since I was a kid, and anything Spider-Man related, I always ate up. And I know I'm not the only one. There are tons of Spider-Man fans out there who love the character a lot. And I guess Sony one day found out that it's within our fan contract that we must watch and absorb everything Spider-Man related. We didn't make the rules, that's just what we signed up for, and now we're paying the price for it. So when Sony started kicking off their Spider-Man spin-off universe, I was already not the biggest fan of it. I know there's people who really enjoy the Venom movies, and while yes, they are a lot more enjoyable and watchable than what we've been getting recently from the Sony spin-off universe, I always walked away from those movies a tad disappointing, a tad bit wanting more, and feeling like a big missing ingredient in these Spider-Man spin-offs is Spider-Man. But that doesn't seem to matter to Sony at all when they want to make full-fledged Spider-Man movies of characters who have made 2 comic book appearances tops. Talking to you, El Muerto. So when it came to Madam Webb, I already had expectations low. I knew this was not set to be a masterpiece and that it was going to be something I was just drawn to because of the Spider-Man connection. Plus, I was also in the mindset that I had already seen the worst of what Sony could provide with Morbius. Like, that movie frustrated me to an unbelievable degree, and the story choices and teases with those wild post-credit scenes made me feel like Sony had hit their bottom point, their low point. There's no way there is anything more underneath Morbius. But I'm here to tell you right now, completely honest, as someone that absolutely despised Morbius, I actually do think it is better than Madam Web. And honestly, I don't even know where to begin. I wish there was a camera pointed at me during my screening of Madam Web so you could see the puzzled, confused, baffled expressions I was having scene by scene as this movie was going. Whenever the first trailer for Madam Web came out, I actually thought they were maybe cooking something nice with that premise of Terminator meets Spider-Man. You know, Madam Web has these time visions, she's in a loop trying to save these people, they're destined for greatness. Loki, I was like, that seems way more fun than Morbius. You pair that up also with what I think are very talented actresses attached to Madam Web, from Dakota Johnson, Sydney Sweeney, Celeste O'Connor, Isabella Merced, Adam Scott, Mike Epps, Emma Roberts. All people that I've actually seen that they know how to act. They are professionals in this industry, but I don't know what happened during the course of this movie. Almost nobody is giving a passable performance. Madam Web is one of those movies that people always say, it turns out so bad it ends up being good. Because immediately from the opening of this movie, you feel like you were just sent to an alternate reality, where dialogue doesn't matter anymore, character interactions are a joke, story structure within a movie is just thrown out the window, and you were like, this is real. Somebody made this movie I'm watching. How? Dakota Johnson in here, like I said, she's someone I actually enjoy, and I find her to be very hilarious in interviews. In fact, her almost exact personality is thrown into Madam Web, where she has a very deadpan, serious humor, and I actually found her to be quite funny in the movie. It's one of the small redeeming factors of this film. But that tone, humor is like all over the place. Sometimes it feels like it's being a legit parody on comic book movies, but taking it in a serious way. And then other times it tries to slap you in the face with the most serious, emotional Spider-Man moments that is not going to resonate with any audience member or be taken seriously. Emma Roberts and Adam Scott are just like a glorified cameo reference attached to this movie. You're watching this thing almost as if it was just a giant setup for the sequel and maybe what you actually wanted to see come out of this movie, because who Adam Scott plays and who Emma Roberts are have almost no significance to the plot other than to just be there as somebody Spider-Man fans will recognize, like, oh, You know who they're supposed to be, right? The Spider-Women in here completely wasted, and again, I think these actresses are talented, but their chemistry, character tropes, and dialogue to one another is just so embarrassing to sit through. Also, don't be expecting them in their superhero costumes for long, because they're really only in it for a total of 3 to 4 minutes throughout the entire movie. Even the premise and what I was actually looking forward to in this movie is executed terribly. Looking at the trailers for Madame Web, they edited the idea of her powers and her being in this time loop and always trying to stop these girls from dying is done 1,000 times better than the way it ends up in the movie. I'm sure it was for creative reasons, because you're supposed to be in the mind of Cassandra Webb and supposed to be confused with all these different visions and pieces of the future that you don't know what's going to happen, but it just ends up making the whole watch frustrating and not as fun. You can feel the concept of like a Terminator Spider-Man going after these girls is exciting, because the moment that starts to happen in this movie, all right, after 20 minutes, the movie's kicking in, it's getting good, and then just immediately dives downhill again. If you're someone who goes to see this movie, you'll understand what I mean. Scenes are treated so awkwardly, and there's moments of like dead airspace where you just naturally feel, after watching hundreds of movies throughout your life, that they're about to cut to the next scene, that they're about to transition to the next story plot point, or we're gonna move things along. Things are dragged out. There's no rhythm, there's no flow to it. Things are just randomly occurring without any sense or logic. And yeah, I know not to let logic hinder my enjoyment of the movie too much when it involves a person who can see the future and people who will get spider powers, but even then, it is just pushed to an embarrassing degree. And really, that's just what all of Madame Web can be summed up to: an embarrassing mess. Because while I'm gonna have a hard time recommending anybody go see this movie, at the same time, I do need you to go see this movie. I need you to witness what I was witnessing and make me feel like I'm not crazy. In fact, see it with a friend or a loved one for Valentine's Day, because you are about to get some of the biggest laughs out of your life, not because the movie intended it that way, because scene throughout this movie, you will sit there, jaw open, turning to your friend going, this is actually happening. Who is approving this? Obviously, you could tell extremely disappointed with Madame Web. I'm trying my best to come up with things I actually did like about the movie. You know, I mentioned I thought Dakota Johnson was actually funny in the film, although her humor, I feel, just doesn't work with the rest of the tone of the movie. She's pretty funny, along with the other non-intentional funny things throughout the film that just feel like a gigantic parody to Spider-Man. Like, dude, like at one point they're trying to describe this spider Terminator killer guy, and they are doing everything to avoid saying the word Spider-Man. He's like, he was crawling on walls, he could swing, he was like a spider person. Oh, the dialogue here, man. The memes that are gonna come out of this movie are gonna make you watching it all worth it eventually. Because once the meme community gets their hands on this, you thought they had fun with Morbius? Madame Web is just a gold mine treasure trove of weird out of context lines, dialogue that you would think would be seen in a child's play. Sony knew they had something horrendous on their hands when they didn't even bother putting a post or mid-credit scene, because yeah, there isn't one in here, although it feels pretty obvious what it was going to be at one point or what their idea for the sequel is. I doubt this will ever get a continuation. This universe will ever be mentioned. There's a reason this movie went from being attached to the Sony Spider-Man spin-off universe to now they've recently said, no, it's its own thing, it's standalone, it's not connected to anything. You know why it's not connected to anything. And again, I hate being this harsh and negative. I don't want you to think I'm exaggerating or just amping things up for the views in YouTube. This is honestly how I feel about it. I cannot believe this was made. There are so many more things I actually want to list off and get into, but it'll run us into spoiler territory, so I'll definitely have to make a spoiler video. But I do think Madame Web is going to live in that category of one of the worst comic book movies of all time. So for Madame Web, I'm going to give action 2 stars, since this movie is set before all the girls get their Spider-Man powers and only the villain is the one with powers. It's pretty lackluster in the action department until the very end, where you have some fireworks and explosions, but these are probably the worst action scenes of the entire Sony spin-off universe. Commenting the movie, I'm gonna give it 2 stars. Like I said, Dakota Johnson's humor in here is pretty funny to me, but what is more funny is just the entirety of this movie. Moments and dialogue that you're supposed to be taking seriously, maybe even supposed to hit an emotional chord with you, and you were just laughing at what this movie's throwing at you. Drama in the movie, I'm gonna give it 1 star. I feel like they really botched the execution of this Spider Terminator trying to go after these girls. You think that'll be the fun, like, turn your brain off, just enjoy this kind of part of the movie, but no, it just becomes repetitive. Pairing that up with just characters existing only to be references and Easter eggs to Spider-Man. I don't like to use the word cash grab, but man, Madam Web is the definition of it. Horror in the movie, I'll give no stars to, and suspense, I'll give 1.5 star. It's pretty obvious how things will turn out and where things will go. It's predictable in that nature, but because of the repetitive and just botched execution of this time concept with her seeing the future, you're never really in suspense worrying for other people. Casual movie fans, I'm gonna give it a C-. Cinephiles, I'm gonna give it an F, and critically, I'm going to give it an F. And in all honesty, while I do actually want you to go see this movie so you could witness this meme movie in all its glory, I, in good conscience, cannot recommend Madam Web to you.
No, please. Please don't say that.
Again, that's just my opinion on the movie, guys. I honestly can't wait for the world to see this movie and what other people have to say about it. Like with every film, I'm sure there will be some people that like it. So if you end up being one of those people that liked Madam Web, actually comment down below what you liked about it, because I'm curious what redeeming qualities people will find about it. And heck, I might even pick some of those comments to read during the spoiler review, because I don't know if I'll have anything positive to say there. Don't forget to like, subscribe, follow me on Twitter at 3C Films or on TikTok at 3C Films. But as always, I'm Chris. Take care.